Ladies and gentlemen, the Football Scoop podcast is back. We're in the swing of things. Everybody's getting ready. We talked about some teams that we're excited about, some teams that we think will be better and worse than expectations a couple of days ago. Today, we're going to talk about the impact of coaches. First-year head coaches, FBS. I want to hear some thoughts. We have no idea who we're going to talk about, each of us. Independently. So we all have thoughts. I might start. I'm going to go to top right again. Zach Barnett, I'm going to throw it to you. Give me a first-year head coach that you think is going to have a significant impact this year, changing things up where he is.
So I've got a batch of 5 guys I want to talk about. First is Curt Cignetti at Indiana. I absolutely loved the moxie that he brought to that his introduction to the Indiana fan base at that basketball game where he grabs the mic. Purdue sucks, Michigan sucks, Ohio State sucks, go IU. I mean, Indiana's been a bottom feeder for decades and decades and decades. Why not just up the bravado to 15? I absolutely love that. This is a program that's had 2 winning seasons since 1995. And you look at their schedule, and November is brutal, but they open with FIU, Western Illinois, a UCLA team that we talked about the other day that I think is going to be a 2 or 3 win team. That game, I believe, is in Bloomington. Charlotte, Maryland, Northwestern, Nebraska. There's an opportunity there to get to 6 wins and really make some noise to the extent that Indiana is capable of making noise. They close with Washington, Michigan State, Michigan, Ohio State, and then the old Oaken bucket game against Purdue. So he's going to get an opportunity to show us how much Michigan and Ohio State suck. So I love that hire. I'm really looking forward to seeing Ken Niumatalolo at San Jose State. We chronicled well at FootballScoop over the years how close he came to getting other head coaching jobs out west, and it just didn't end up happening for one reason or another. And to see him at a place outside of Navy where he's not going to be running the triple, Ken's one of my favorite people in college football, so I'm going to be interested in watching him. Another one, kind of similar, Bronco Mendenhall at New Mexico. This is a program that's had 7 straight losing seasons. Not an easy job out there, but Bronco's been angling for a head coaching job. He's an experienced guy. He's in 17 seasons as a head coach. He's had 1 losing season. That was at BYU. His first year at Virginia. He was at BYU for 11 years, never had a losing season. Had a losing season his first year at Virginia. They got back on track. This is a guy who knows how to win at a place that's not easy to win. My 4th guy I want to talk about is Sharon Moore at Michigan. Obviously, I imagine he's going to be a topic of conversation throughout the entire year. It's going to be interesting to me because trying to maintain the culture of Jim Harbaugh, but at the same time make his new spin on it. You're never able to recapture. Every team is different. So how is this team going to be different from last year? I think is going to be interesting. And then the guy I'm most interested in is an assistant in Colin Klein, the offensive coordinator at Texas A&M. And we saw the Aggies were among the most poorly coached teams in college football over these past few years. A lot of optimism around Colin Klein to reimagine the Aggie offense. He's only called plays for 2 years. You look at where Kansas State was when he got the job. They were 33rd in yards per play. The year before, he was on staff but not calling plays. 36th in yards per play in 22, 48th in 2023. Passing efficiency, they were 45th the year before he took over. They were 48th to 51st. You really see his mark in the run game. They went from 63rd the year prior to when he got the offensive coordinator job. Then they went to 15th and 12th. And then you look at quarterback carries. They went from 79 quarterback rushes the year prior to him becoming OC to 152 and then 133. So quarterback run game is something that is evident in his offensive philosophy. You look at his career. He was a Jeep playing quarterback, just a battering ram of a man. They're not going to be able to run Connor Wegman that much. They don't have a whole lot of experience behind him. He's missed parts of both of his 2 seasons with injury. So how do they manufacture a run game? How involved is the quarterback in their run game, and are they able to run the ball without running the quarterback? Is something I think is going to be very interesting this season.
So a little behind the scenes action here. we use Slack as a little communication tool, and we had put on our little Slack channel saying, "Hey, how about we podcast in the morning? Maybe we'll talk about one coach we think will, change things. He's a game changer. New head coach coming in and can change things." Zach opted to name 5 coaches. John Brice, in protest, just dropped off the podcast for a minute, and I asked him to come back on. He did. He did. So we're glad to have you back, John Brice. The floor is yours. Maybe we keep it to one coach. I don't know.
All right. If I'm being forced to keep it to one coach, then I think that I will go with Willie Fritz at Houston. The guy's been a winner absolutely everywhere he's ever been. What he's done at Tulane in recent years is really hard to put into words with how much more difficult it is to keep and maintain things going, especially I think at the group of 5 level, the way that the transfer portal has opened that level up to be rated on a biannual basis. But Willie Fritz has already had success coaching in the state of Texas. He's had success everywhere he's been. Houston is the 4th most populous city in the entire country. High school football is fabulous in Texas. It should be a good program. Willie Fritz will make Houston a good program again much sooner rather than later.
I like that a lot. When the Houston job came open, I had a lot of conversation with coaches, and that was a desired job. That is a destination job for a lot of people. I mean, you mentioned Harris County, where Houston is located, puts out as many players as most states. And then you have the East Texas corridor right up the road. That's a job where you could go there and win for a long time and stay for a long time for the right person. And Willie Fritz has done nothing but win, going back to his D2 days at Central Missouri.
Yeah, and there's money, there's resources, and you have some really deep-pocketed people that want to see Houston win and be successful again. And you can find guys that it appeals to them if they've maybe been overlooked by Texas or Texas A&M, who want to play with the chip on their shoulder. And I think that's kind of the way that Willie Fritz coaches as well.
Culturally speaking, changing from Holgerson to Willie Fritz is different oceans. I think it's going to be a fascinating one, and I think it's going to be fantastic, honestly. It might take a little time to build some traction, but I think quickly they are a perennial competitor. All right, Doug Samuels, give me what you got, buddy.
Well, once I heard Zach was going with 5, I probably should have spoken out because the chances of us having a little overlap are pretty good. My pick's going to stay in the Lone Star State. But before I get to that, I want to add, because my first pick was Cignetti at Indiana, bringing his staff from JMU. Most of them, Brian Haynes, defensive coordinator, one of the top defenses in the country last year. He's an Indiana guy. I played with his brother at the small college level, and Tyler is now the head coach at Catawba, I think, in North Carolina, D2 school. But I'm really excited to see what those guys do. They brought Rod Ojong from Charlotte. That's part of the Dan Lanning and Georgia kind of tree, which is obviously branch of the Saban tree. So Cignetti has a lot of familiarity on that staff. He found guys that he knows how they coach and what they're going to coach. And then like Zach said, just brought that bravado. So, in Big Ten country, I think Indiana has about as much of a pulse right now without playing a game as they've had in a long time, just from making that hire. So that it's fun to see them relevant. My pick's going to go to Scotty Walden at UTEP. I love his youthful energy. He's a guy that has fully embraced every stop he's been, coming from Austin P. #Let'sGoP. He's gone to UTEP and completely embraced El Paso. Everyone else is rolling out with Bentleys and stuff for their recruiting days. He rolled out in a lowrider with hydraulics that's bumping around. Like he has fully embraced El Paso, and I think El Paso is going to embrace him and his staff and their energy. Brought a bunch of guys from Austin Peay with him. He's a 35 under 35 guy. I love that hire. I think that's the best hire they could have made, because UTEP has been largely irrelevant for a long time. Really tough place to win. Not a ton of resources. But like JB said at Houston, like, you're going to have to get some of those Texas, Arizona guys that have a chip on their shoulder that didn't go Power 4 and do what you can with them. So I love the Scotty Walden hire.
Thinking about, both of you guys mentioned Indiana and Cignetti. I love that hire as well. When Tom Allen had Kane, Womack, and Kalen DeBoer as his coordinators, there was some legit juice there. And then they both guys, got great jobs and moved on and flourished. And Indiana just kind of puttered out a little bit. I think Cignetti's got significant potential. I'm with you guys. I considered him as well. The guy I would speak about, I think an absolute game changer, is Jeff Lebby at Mississippi State. Thinking back a little bit about Mississippi State, under Dan Mullen, Dan ran that place kind of like how Notre Dame is run. It was very organized. The players had to be there. They were in a lot of meetings. I wouldn't say it was a real joy-filled place. Leach had a different perspective. He didn't really care if the guys were there. Come in, get your work, go away. We're going to play football, and we're going to win games. And because I'm going to outplay call you, I'm going to figure some things out. We're going to score a few more points. It wasn't a lot of joy in the building under Leach either. Guys laughed with Leach. Leach was funny, but they weren't coming there and hanging out and just being around. Zach Arnett, very difficult spot, right? Nobody can even I don't even. Zach was in a tough spot. He did what he did. They just needed a breath of fresh air. And with Lane, up to the Northwest, Lane's got a lot of joy in Oxford. There's a lot of happiness, a lot of fun, a lot of points being scored. And Jeff Lebby and the administration have brought that to Mississippi State. So it's a whole new outlook. Guys are loving being in the building. They brought in a lot of new faces from the portal as well. There's a lot of people who have played college football on the roster. He's trying to bring that attitude there, and he has completely changed the environment. Guys want to be there. I think he's got a shot to continue to build the next couple of years successfully at Mississippi State. I don't know that it translates this year into a massive amount of wins. But culturally speaking, the athletic director is behind him. The administration is behind him. They're going to give him the rope to do what he wants to do there. And his staff is all bought in. I think it's going to take a little bit of time, but I like what Jeff Lebby is doing in Mississippi State.
Interesting. I like the Lebby hire. I've loved his offenses for several years. When you look at their schedule, you just hope people give them some patience, because he didn't inherit a lot, and then he did inherit one of the roughest schedules in all of college football this year. I was tempted to talk about Jonathan Smith. I think we could talk about him for a long time. I think Bill O'Brien will bring some stability to Boston College. I'm intrigued by that. I'm not calling it my most exciting hire or the one that I think will have the most immediate impact or the highest ceiling. But, I mean, the guy has done wonders when Penn State was in tatters, and then he was fine with the Houston Texans until he got too much control. So there are a bunch of intriguing ones out there, but those are a couple of the other ones that I really examined and thought about going with this morning.
Am I allowed to name anyone else, or am I suspended?
Go for it.
Are you just reading off of a list at this point?
No, two people I want to bring up. One, Fran Brown at Syracuse. I'm intrigued by at a place, an area of the country where college football is an afterthought. His ties to the area, his staff's ties to the area, I think can bring some level of excitement to the Carrier Dome that they haven't seen in a long time. And we've been talking
Carrier Dome.
We've been talking for nearly 15 minutes on a college football podcast about first-year head coaches, and we haven't mentioned Kalen DeBoer, which I think reflects well on us. That he's as much of a known quantity for a first-year coach as you have in college football, but obviously he's got to be mentioned.
We're in camp mode, Zach. This isn't the layup line. We didn't open with Kalen DeBoer because that's a bunny. So
I think for a lot of guys, like for coaches, you don't want to be the guy after the legend. You want to be the guy after the legend, right? So Kalen DeBoer steps into a spot that, with his track record, I mean, you could blow things up, but the smart person doesn't blow everything up and start over. So he's kept a lot of the foundational stuff intact, and having Saban right there on campus to be able to bounce ideas off, I think it's super smart. I think he's approaching it the smartest way you possibly can. But yeah, it would be like Scott taking Ole Miss last week. Earlier this week, I'd also like to point out, for the record, today, August 9th, Scott Roussel said something nice about Starkville. So let's put that on the calendar.
Agreed. You know, I think has the potential, maybe year 2, year 3, sleeping giant, I think, is Del McGee at Georgia State. Sean Elliott did a great job there, stabilizing, building, growing that program. And he got it to a place, and then the program's a little under-resourced, and he lost a bunch of good coaches. And it's just such fertile ground right in the heart of Atlanta. Del has a vision for that place, and Del's a really good human. He's got some great coaches as well. If they can find an offensive identity and 2 or 3 game changers on the field, which I think they can, and if they can get enough resources to compete, to hold on to those players, Georgia State's got huge potential in the future, I think.
Yeah, that's a program where obviously you're not going to be in line ahead of Georgia and Alabama and you name it for high school kids. But if a guy like with the connections that he does will be able to get those hidden gem guys that compete, that can play, that are overlooked. And then also you're in a really good position for those boomerang kids, those kids from the area that go sign with Power 4 programs and it doesn't work out. They're looking to transfer, find a new spot, come back home, play for your hometown team and ball out.
And if Dell or the administration can cultivate 2 or 3 donors who can make a difference, once you identify those 3 or 4 program changing players, if you can find a way to incentivize them to stay with you for that junior year, maybe that senior year, all of a sudden at that level, those 2 guys can, Billy Napier had a couple of guys at Louisiana Lafayette, and those guys, propelled them to 11 wins a couple of times. You hang on to a couple of guys like that and you change things. John Brice, any closing thoughts, my friend?
Yes, I have just a couple here. This isn't only a landmark podcast because Scott is running for mayor in Starkville. This is a key day because Zach Barnett went out of his way to tease the new offensive coordinator in College Station, Texas. These are momentous occasions. I almost said something nice about Kentucky. I was so inspired by you two.
This is why you come to the Football Scoop podcast, guys. We try and keep it under 20 minutes. We try and have a lot of fun. Football season's upon us. This is greatness. Everybody's undefeated, even Zach Barnett. God bless America. With that, we're out. Tell your friends about the Football Scoop podcast. Let's grow this dog. Peace.